Mr. Whitmore, thank you for your time. I know you've heard hundreds of pitches. I'll be direct. I want to build a platform called LifeWorth.
Mr. Whitmore, thank you for your time, Marcus began. I know you've heard hundreds of pitches, so I'll be direct. My idea isn't sexy, it won't make headlines, but it will change lives. Theodore leaned back. Finally, something different. I want to build a platform called LifeWorth, Marcus continued. But it's not another social media app or productivity tool. It's a service that helps people in transition, people who've just been laid off, gone through divorce, lost someone, or simply feel stuck, discover what actually matters to them. Theodore's expression didn't change. That's a therapy app. The market's saturated. No, sir. Marcus pulled out a single sheet of paper with hand-drawn diagrams. Therapy is part of it, but LifeWorth goes further. We combine career counseling, financial planning, community building, and purpose finding into one integrated experience. We partner with employers who want to support laid-off workers with dignity. We work with hospitals to help patients rebuilding their lives. We connect people to volunteer opportunities that match their hidden talents. Marcus Chen had exactly 60 seconds to pitch an idea worth billions to the second richest man in America. But he wasn't thinking about the money. He wasn't even thinking about winning. Because unlike the 847 men who'd come before him, Marcus had no idea that successfully impressing Theodore Whitmore meant winning his daughter's hand in marriage. And that's exactly why he was about to change everything. Theodore Whitmore didn't become a billionaire by accident. The 62-year-old tech mogul had built his empire on reading people, predicting markets, and making impossible bets that somehow always paid off. But there was one problem even his fortune couldn't solve: his daughter's happiness. Charlotte Whitmore was 28, brilliant, and deeply lonely. Not because she lacked suitors. Her Instagram had 3.2 million followers, and her DMs were a graveyard of pickup lines, but because she'd never met anyone who saw her as anything more than a pathway to wealth. "They don't love you, Charlotte," Theodore had told her one evening in his Manhattan penthouse overlooking the glittering chaos of the city. "They love what you represent." Charlotte stared into her wine glass. "So what do you suggest, Dad? A personality test? A compatibility algorithm?" Theodore smiled, that dangerous smile that preceded his wildest ideas. A challenge. And that's how the Whitmore Initiative was born. The premise was deceptively simple. Any man could schedule a meeting with Theodore Whitmore to pitch a business idea. If the idea was genuinely innovative and had billion-dollar potential, the winner would receive seed funding and mentorship from Theodore himself. What the public didn't know was that Theodore had a hidden agenda. He wasn't just looking for the next unicorn startup. He was looking for someone worthy of his daughter. The news exploded across every platform. Bloomberg called it the Wonka golden ticket of entrepreneurship. TechCrunch ran 17 think pieces. Within 48 hours, Theodore's assistant had fielded 12,000 appointment requests. Charlotte watched the media circus from her apartment in Brooklyn, where she'd insisted on living despite her father's protests. "This is insane, Dad," she said over FaceTime. "You're basically auctioning me off." "I'm doing nothing of the sort," Theodore replied smoothly. "I'm evaluating business proposals. You don't even have to meet these men. But," he paused, "if someone impresses me enough, I might introduce you. No pressure. No obligation." Charlotte knew her father too well. This was pressure wrapped in Italian leather and spritzed with expensive cologne. For 6 months, Theodore met with pitch after pitch. There was Bradley Hamilton III, Harvard MBA, who proposed a luxury space tourism venture but spent 20 minutes name-dropping his family's political connections. Swipe left. There was Dev Malhotra, a Stanford dropout with a cryptocurrency scheme that sounded impressive until Theodore asked 3 specific questions Dev couldn't answer. Next, Jason Rodriguez pitched an AI that would revolutionize emotional intelligence, but Theodore noticed he'd been checking his Rolex every 30 seconds. Disqualified. Some were brilliant but arrogant. Others were humble but unoriginal. A few were clearly just there for the publicity. Theodore began to wonder if his experiment was a failure. Charlotte called every Sunday to say, "I told you so," with varying degrees of smugness. Then, on a rainy October afternoon, Marcus Chen walked into Theodore's office. Marcus was 29, wearing a suit that was clearly borrowed and shoes he'd polished until they almost hid their age. His presentation materials were in a simple leather folder, not the custom-bound pitch decks Theodore had grown accustomed to. He was nervous. His hand trembled slightly when they shook, but his eyes were clear. "Mr. Whitmore, thank you for your time," Marcus began. "I know you've heard hundreds of pitches, so I'll be direct. My idea isn't sexy. It won't make headlines, but it will change lives." Theodore leaned back. Finally, something different. "I want to build a platform called LifeWorth," Marcus continued. "But it's not another social media app or productivity tool. It's a service that helps people in transition, people who've just been laid off, gone through divorce, lost someone, or simply feel stuck, discover what actually matters to them." Theodore's expression didn't change. "That's a therapy app. The market's saturated." "No, sir." Marcus pulled out a single sheet of paper with hand-drawn diagrams. "Therapy is part of it, but LifeWorth goes further. We combine career counseling, financial planning, community building, and purpose finding into one integrated experience. We partner with employers who want to support laid-off workers with dignity. We work with hospitals to help patients rebuilding their lives. We connect people to volunteer opportunities that match their hidden talents." "Revenue model?" Theodore asked. "B2B primarily. Companies pay us to support their employees through transitions. It builds loyalty, reduces wrongful termination suits, and creates goodwill. B2C subscription for individuals, but..." Marcus hesitated, then continued. "Anyone going through poverty-level hardship gets it free. We subsidize them with corporate profits." Theodore studied the young man. "That's not a billion-dollar idea, Marcus. That's a nice idea. There's a difference." Marcus nodded slowly. "You're probably right. By traditional metrics, this might cap at a few $100 million in annual revenue. But Mr. Whitmore..." He met Theodore's eyes directly. "What if we measured success differently? What if we measured it in lives rebuilt, in suicides prevented, in people who found their purpose?" "That doesn't pay shareholders," Theodore said. "No," Marcus agreed, "but it creates something rarer than profit. It creates meaning. And I think..." He paused. "I think you didn't build your empire just to accumulate zeros in a bank account. I think you're trying to figure out what it's all for, just like everyone else." The room went silent. Theodore had been pitched to by people who wanted to impress him, flatter him, or manipulate him. Marcus was the first person in 6 months who'd tried to understand him. "Tell me about yourself," Theodore said, abandoning the business discussion entirely. "Not your resume. You." Marcus looked surprised but answered honestly. He talked about growing up in Queens, the son of immigrants who worked 3 jobs between them. About his little sister who'd struggled with depression and how inadequate he'd felt when therapy alone wasn't enough. She needed community, purpose, structure. About working in corporate consulting and watching good people get destroyed by layoffs with no support system. Life worth isn't an abstract idea to me, Marcus said quietly. It's what I wish had existed for everyone I've loved who needed it. Theodore made a decision. I'm going to pass on your business pitch, he said, and watched Marcus's face fall. But not because it's not good, because I think you need a different partner for this. Someone who understands the social impact space better than I do. He pulled out his phone. I'm going to connect you with 3 people who can help you. No strings attached. Marcus stared. I don't understand. And, Theodore continued, I'd like you to meet my daughter. For coffee. Just coffee. She runs a nonprofit that's struggling with scaling issues. I think you might have interesting perspectives to share with each other. Mr. Whitmore, I didn't come here to... I know you didn't. That's why I'm suggesting it. 2 days later, Marcus sat in a coffee shop in Brooklyn, convinced he was about to have the most awkward meeting of his life. He'd Googled Charlotte Whitmore, of course. The photos showed a beautiful woman in designer clothes at charity galas, always smiling the smile of someone who'd learned to perform happiness. The woman who walked through the door was different. She wore jeans, a Columbia hoodie, and Converse. Her hair was in a messy bun. She looked like she'd been up all night. Marcus, I'm Charlie. She shook his hand firmly. Sorry I look like a disaster. We're in the middle of a funding crisis and I've been running numbers for 14 hours. They sat. And then something unexpected happened. They talked. Not the careful, performative conversation of a setup, but real talk. Charlie explained her nonprofit's mission, providing educational resources to underprivileged kids, and the bureaucratic nightmare of scaling it. Marcus found himself sketching ideas on napkins, suggesting systems from his consulting days. She challenged him, asked sharp questions, poked holes in his logic. An hour passed, then 2. Can I tell you something? Charlie said finally. My dad has been doing this insane thing where he interviews men under the guise of business pitches, but he's actually trying to find someone for me to date. Marcus froze. Oh. Yeah. She laughed, but it was edged with bitterness. Subtle, right? So I'm sorry if this whole thing felt like a setup. I told him it was crazy, but he's stubborn. Marcus processed this. So he's been evaluating guys for you? For 6 months? Apparently, she rolled her eyes. And you're the first one he's actually asked me to meet. Huh, Marcus said. Then, I genuinely had no idea. I just wanted funding for life worth. Charlie studied his face. You're serious? Completely. She started laughing, real, unguarded laughter. Oh my God, that's amazing. You're the only person who wasn't trying, and that's why That's so Dad. They looked at each other, and something shifted. Want to get dinner? Charlie asked. Like actual dinner, not a setup. Just 2 people who apparently both think about impact scaling and life purpose way too much? Marcus grinned. Yeah, I really do. They started meeting regularly. Coffee turned into dinners, turned into long walks through Brooklyn, turned into Charlie sitting in on Marcus's meetings with the investors Theodore had connected him with. She was brilliant at seeing the human side of business problems, and he was good at systematic thinking. They complemented each other. Theodore watched from a distance, careful not to interfere. He'd made his introduction. The rest had to be real. 3 months in, Marcus and Charlie were officially dating, though they kept it quiet. LifeWorth was taking shape. Marcus had formed an LLC, assembled a small team, and landed 2 pilot corporate clients. Charlie's nonprofit had implemented several of Marcus's efficiency suggestions and was finally operating in the black. One evening, Charlie invited Marcus to dinner at Theodore's penthouse. He was terrified. "He likes you," Charlie assured him. "He's just a lot." Dinner was indeed a lot. Theodore asked probing questions about Marcus's 5-year plan, his philosophy on leadership, his thoughts on wealth distribution. It felt less like dinner and more like a very polite interrogation. Over dessert, Theodore finally got to the point. "Marcus, I need to know something. If Charlie wasn't my daughter, if she worked at a non-profit and lived in a tiny apartment and had no connection to wealth, would you still be here?" Marcus didn't hesitate. "Sir, I didn't know she was your daughter when I met her. She told me in the first 10 minutes that you'd been playing matchmaker, and I almost left because I thought it was insulting to her. I stayed because she challenged me, made me think differently, and treated my ideas like they mattered. Not because of who her father was, despite it." Charlie reached for Marcus's hand under the table. Theodore nodded slowly. "Good answer." He stood, walked to his study, and returned with a folder. "I'm going to invest in LifeWorth, $2 million for 15% equity, standard terms. This is a business decision based on market analysis and your pilot program results." Marcus's eyes widened. "Mr. Whitmore, Theodore, and I'm not done." He looked at his daughter. "Charlie, I owe you an apology. This whole experiment was manipulative and patriarchal and probably mildly insane. Your mother would have killed me if she were here." Charlie's eyes softened at the mention of her mother, who'd passed away 5 years earlier. "But," Theodore continued, "I don't regret it. Not because it worked the way I planned, it didn't, but because it forced me to articulate what I was actually looking for. Not someone wealthy or connected or impressive on paper, someone who saw you as a person. Someone whose mission was about more than accumulation. Someone who reminded me what I'd forgotten. That the point of building something isn't the building. It's who you build it for." He turned to Marcus. "I didn't choose you for my daughter. She chose you. I'm just choosing to invest in your character as much as your business." The wedding was small, held in the Brooklyn Botanic Garden where Marcus and Charlie had spent countless Sunday afternoons planning their futures. Theodore walked his daughter down the aisle, tears in his eyes. In his toast, he said, 847 men pitched me ideas over 6 months. 846 of them were trying to impress me. One of them was trying to solve a problem he actually cared about. That's the difference between success and meaning. I hope you all find work that matters and people who see you. My daughter found both." Marcus's vows included a promise that made everyone laugh and cry. "Charlie, I promise to always bring the napkins because you're definitely going to sketch out plans for how we can make the world less terrible. And I promise to believe in those plans, even when they seem impossible. Especially then." LifeWorth launched nationally 6 months after the wedding. It wasn't a unicorn. It probably never would be. But it became something rarer, a genuinely sustainable business that measured success in metrics that actually mattered. Corporate partners loved it because employee retention skyrocketed. Individuals loved it because it treated life transitions with dignity instead of platitudes. Charlie joined the board and used her nonprofit experience to shape the company's social mission. She and Marcus started a foundation together, funded partially by LifeWorth's profits, that supported people rebuilding their lives after crisis. Theodore retired from active business to focus on impact investing. He'd learned what his daughter already knew. Wealth was a tool, not a destination. The question wasn't how much you had. It was what you built with it. And on Sunday evenings, the three of them still had dinner together, usually at that same Brooklyn coffee shop where Marcus and Charlie first met. Theodore would ask impossible questions. Charlie would challenge every assumption. Marcus would sketch solutions on napkins. It wasn't a fairy tale. It was something better. It was real. Because here's what Theodore Whitmore learned after meeting 847 people. You can't buy love, manufacture connection, or engineer meaning. But you can create the conditions for it to grow. You can ask the right questions. You can recognize sincerity when you see it. And sometimes, the best investment you ever make isn't in a company or a product. It's in believing that someone else's impossible dream might just be worth betting everything on. What would you pitch if you had 60 seconds to change your life? Drop your answer in the comments below. And don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories about the unexpected ways people find purpose, connection, and meaning in a world that often forgets to measure what actually matters. Do you like this story? Where are you watching from? Like, comment, share, and subscribe. Thank you. See you soon.